Hey, hello everyone. This is Dan King from Fist Bump Media, and I'm really excited today to have you join me for this awesome webinar. Great webinar series we've been working on, but this is a really cool one too. As we get close to wrapping up the end of the year, um, I like to look forward into the next year and look at what some of the trends are, some of the things that we've been seeing through this year so far, things that I anticipate will probably continue to be working well into the next year and everything too today. So today's webinar topic is a cool one. It's 5 simple tips that will skyrocket your blog results in 2019. And when I say skyrocket, I really mean that if you actually kind of dedicate to working these kinds of ideas into your flow and your rhythm for how you're blogging and stuff, you can really see substantial results from this. This is the kind of stuff that I've seen and experienced myself as a blogger over the years. I've been blogging now for about 12 years or so. I've seen a lot of ups and downs in my own journey and everything, but we work with hundreds of other bloggers and stuff right now too on a regular basis. So this is the kind of stuff too that I even see from what they're doing and other best practices that I see out all around the web and everything too. So this is a pretty cool session. These 5 tips that will really kind of skyrocket your results going into this next year. I'm pretty excited about it. Because I really do believe that, like I said, if you get stuck on doing these things and make this your focus going into the next year, you'll really see substantial growth and stuff with your blog over the course of the year. With that, the first one, I'm going to dive right in. If you have questions throughout this session, feel free to hit the live chat. If you're watching live, and I will try to answer those questions throughout the session if I can. If you're watching afterwards, just hit us up via email or even on Twitter, at Fist Bump Media, and we're happy to kind of check in and answer those questions there as well too. So with that, 5 simple tips that will skyrocket your blog results in 2019. Tip number 1 is focus, right? And I'm going to jump around. I'm going to share some stuff. I'll go back and forth a little bit here throughout this session. But focus, right? I love this quote from Anonymous, one of my favorite people, Anonymous, right? Focus. Otherwise, you will find that life becomes a blur. How true is that statement, right? Is that if you're not focused on one thing in particular, it just really kind of becomes blurry, right? Just from a pure vision standpoint, right? Focus is that important, right? To eliminate the blur. I love this quote too, as well, from Stephen Covey, the very popular author of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Is the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Whoa, right? How true is that? And it sounds kind of funny to say, but it really is. And when we're talking about finding and getting blog results, right? And I talk about this idea of focus. That's the thing, right? I see a lot of bloggers and writers and stuff around the web. They get kind of scattered around, not really sure which direction they're going or anything like that. In fact, excuse me. In fact, my own writing journey, right? I had been blogging, I think probably for about 2 years or so, and for me originally, the blogging was all about working out things that I was learning, things that I was teaching, and stuff like that. But it was really pretty aimless. I mean, if you came to my blog, it could just be a mishmash of a bunch of different things, really not have a lot of direction. I was a faith-based blogger, so there was obviously that one thread, but it was a pretty general wide thread, right? So I wasn't really catching anything. I wasn't seeing the traction that I wanted to see. So I came across what was called a blog action day, and I believe change.org still does the same thing. I think they've kind of taken over it for a while, now, but I believe every year around October timeframe or so, they have one day, a blog action day, where they ask writers all around the world, all different types of blogs, whatever, to focus on this one topic, right? In this one year, several years ago, the topic was poverty. So I thought, as a faith-based blogger, I'm like, oh, this is great. I should write about this. I should care about things like poverty, right? The Bible tells me to, you know. So, but honestly, I didn't know a lot about it, right? So I started diving into the topic, right? And the more I dove into the topic, the more I started realizing how big of an issue it was. And then, you know, looking for people who are doing great work to help solve the problem, right? And it was through that journey, you know, I published my blog post on Blog Action Day about poverty. And little did I know that that would become a big focus for who I was and what defined me as a blogger, as a writer. Excuse me. I'm feeling a little under the weather today. But that would define me, not just for the one day, but it became a theme that I started to write about, you know, more about this kind of the social injustice stuff and everything, right? You know, and poverty in particular. I started to write more posts on the topic. The post led to an opportunity to go with an organization that I was talking about their work, you know, in trying to eliminate poverty. You know, it was fantastic, really great work. You know, that led to going on a trip with them, which led to publishing my first book about the topic, which led to writing more about it and working with other nonprofits and getting picked up by a traditional publisher to publish a book on the topic and stuff. So you can see how starting to focus on a certain theme, right, and finding a direction and saying, you know what, this is what I'm going to be about as a writer, right, is one thing that really started giving me a lot of traction, right? I even see today, right, that, you know, I can write about some of the things that I just like to write about, you know, may not be on that focus and stuff too. When I publish those posts, a lot of times I'll hear crickets when they go out there, you know, but then when I write about things like this kind of stem from this whole same poverty thing for us too, is a family we've adopted. And I start writing about adoption and stuff like that too, along those same types of things. You know, those posts do really well for me, you know, so that's a big thing, right, is to keep the main thing. The main thing is to keep the main thing, right? Don't stray from this, whatever idea it is that you want to focus on, and really be specific, right? Zero in, you know, it's hard to come up with a very broad topic and say, you know, I'm going to be a food blogger and I'm just blogging about all kinds of food, right? You know, focus on, you know, one type of food. Focus on healthy food, paleo food, crock pot food, or I guess it's not crock pot anymore. It's the instant pot food or something, you know. Focus on barbecue and grilling, or, you know, whatever it is. You know, find a good focus and keep that main focus, right? And there's a lot of ways to do this. You know, we like to, you know, encourage people to do this, the one word 365, right? And that's something I know has been pretty popular among bloggers for a long time and stuff too, right? You know, but you pick this one word, and that's the idea is 365 throughout this next year. This is what you're going to focus on, right? You know, I can tell you that as a personal blogger myself, I'm going to be focusing on my personal blog. I'll be focusing a lot more on the adoption journey, right? We've adopted 3 kids through 2 separate adoptions, and you know, it's something too it's really stemmed out a lot of the stuff that I know, you know, the poverty, things like that too, that have really driven me as a writer, and I've found a lot of success on. So as I write over the next year, you'll see me focusing a lot more on that one word adoption, for example, right? And telling those stories, because those are the ones that give me some the most traction. But the really important thing here, right, is that, you know, however you do it. For me, it was this blog action day. You know, one word 365 is a great tool to use. And you don't have to use any one of these. You know, the important thing is that you take some time to really think about, what do you want to be known for as a writer? What kind of writer are you? What are some of the things that you're most passionate about, right? Very specifically, and how are you going to drive stories along those lines through your blog. And having that kind of focus and not straying from it will be one of the big things that will help kind of skyrocket your blog results coming into the next year. Okay, so pay attention to that. Excuse me. All right. So the next one, number one, was focus, right? From the 5 simple tips here. Number 2 is evaluate your email strategy, right? Evaluate your email strategy. And the first thing I want to say about evaluating the email strategy is to let the data guide you, right? For those who've known me for any period of time around here and stuff, that you know that I'm a very data-driven kind of guy, right? I like to follow what the numbers tell me to do. And this is an actual report from the Fist Bump Media account. I'm going to highlight a few things in here too. You don't even really have to see a lot of the details too, but looking at this chart, you can see that the top line here has to do with open rates, right? So emails that we've sent, here's the open rates for those emails. And the bottom blue area here is the click rate. How many people have clicked through on those emails? Okay. And so you'll see, even with the open rate has a lot of ups and downs, right? Some really high peaks. You see some running here over 70% open rate for some emails. And we see some running lower, down, below 30%. One thing I'll point out with this though too is that another thing you see on this chart is that red line there is the industry average for the type of industry that my content here is in, right? So the industry average for open rate is actually below 20%. So you see even my dips low are still substantially higher than the industry average, right? So that's a good thing, right? Is that I've got open rates, going much higher than industry average, just because I've been working on this for a long time, But you see too, I still have some high peaks and some low lows, right? So a big thing is you're evaluating your email strategy, right? Is to let the data guide you, okay? And I'll talk more about some of these details here in a second and everything too, but take a look at some of the emails and what's getting open more, what's getting more clicks, right? Those are the kinds of things that you want to help you define what you're going to be doing with your email, okay? One of the other big things as it comes to evaluating your email strategy is to think about what kinds of emails you're sending, right? When you think about the different kinds of emails you're sending, there's several different types, right? As bloggers, let's see, I lost my visual here. Let me try to get this back. As bloggers, one of the most common forms of emails is just it's the daily blog feed, right? So I write a new post and the email goes out to my subscribers today. Okay, so one of the things I'll actually ask you to take a look at here in a little bit too is even the frequency and stuff of your emails. Okay, so so is it really driving the most traction for you to have those daily emails go out? How often are you blogging in the first place? Do you have daily blog posts? And if you do, are you sending an email to somebody's inbox, to your subscribers, every single day? If you do that, you can tend to start losing email subscribers at a higher rate, because some people may say, my inbox is just getting flooded. I get emails from this every day. I don't want those emails every day. So there's some options there, right? So explore, how is your daily blog feed going? Do you have regular new subscribers coming in, and do you have subscribers unsubscribing? Maybe, and why are they unsubscribing? Is it just too much email or whatever? And often they'll get asked that question when they unsubscribe. It's just too many emails, right? So if you see trends in that, use that information and say, maybe I need to reevaluate my frequency, right? So even if you're a daily blogger, one of the options that you could do is change it up so that maybe you're sending like a weekly summary of all of the blog posts that came throughout the week, right? And if you do that, you can even play around with the days that people get the emails. So so if you're sending like a weekly summary, if I write 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever blog posts, wrote whatever throughout the week, then on one day they'll get the summary of all those 5 recent blog posts that I wrote. Okay, is it best to send that on a Monday, a Tuesday? You know, you think about it, Mondays can be really busy, and then they kind of sit, and then people might forget about it. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, midweek like that is usually a pretty good time to send email. And I've seen a lot of data too to point to Saturday. If you want people to read and really digest your emails, send it on Saturday morning, because then that's where they're going to have most time to really kind of sit around and you know, maybe read through the substantial, you know, portion of the content stuff. So consider that, you know, because you can, even with the daily blog feed, you can even give your subscribers an option and say, hey, do you prefer to get the daily feed, get the post every day, or do you prefer a weekly summary, right? You know, so anything you can do that helps kind of keep their reason for wanting to unsubscribe down, you know, can continue to give you a boost and a lift with how much they're actually getting to see and engage with that content. Okay. A third type of option here, right? You have your daily blog feed, you've got your weekly or even monthly blog feed, and then the other option is to go newsletter style, right? You can also just go with a newsletter type approach. This one, where the first two can be set up so that they're a little bit more automatic and really just based on you've published new content, so it sends out the email. This one is the much more manual process, right? So if you want to spend a little more time crafting something up, you can actually write some specific content, feature some blog posts. Maybe there's even an old blog post that you wrote 2 years ago that you think is still relevant today for some reason, right? And you can reshare that in a newsletter format stuff along with, you know, links to newer content and stuff, right? So going newsletter style becomes a little bit more of a manual process, but the way you kind of craft that, you can really drive some traction stuff too. Feature things if you've got a book out there, or even if it's a small ebook or something like that. You know, put almost like an ad kind of thing in the email or something like that in a newsletter kind of format. You know, so you can do some things like that to really help kind of boost and drive stuff to what you want to drive. Really hit themes too. You know, you can hit like a monthly newsletter with a theme for, like, you know, the Christmas and New Year's and all that, and feature specific content, whether it's brand new or even old stuff. You know, links to ads, whatever, you know, stuff like that. Be able to do it. One of the most important things about this, though, as you're exploring these options, is to experiment and measure, right? Experiment and measure, right? Again, let that data drive you. I'm going to go back to screen share here for a second. Let that data drive you and show you, you know, hey, I tried this newsletter format and the open rate was really good. I got a really great click rate through it and stuff. And I can tell you some of these on this report, you know, those are some experiments with some newsletter style content and stuff too. So you can see I actually peaked up and hit some pretty higher click-through rates. Then I kind of changed back and stuff. You can see, you know, I mean, it's still some pretty good open rates and stuff, right? Again, everything's over that industry average, but you can see a little bit of a dip here when I change some tactic and fewer clicks, right? But sometimes clicks, you know, may be exactly what I want. Maybe I've got the content they need to see in that email, and they don't have to click through to something else, you know. So not necessarily a bad thing, but the open rate much more important there. But the important thing is experiment and measure, right? So you'll want to look at things like, you know, how often are people unsubscribing, right? You know, how much are the emails getting opened compared to each other, right? Don't just go, oh, my open rate in general is pretty good. You know, are there some things that got really low open rate, even though it might be actually pretty good overall, compared to stuff that are getting just really great, killer, really high open rates, right? So measure that stuff, experiment with it, and then continue to try to reproduce the stuff that is showing to be regularly more effective in reaching your audience and getting the traction and stuff like that you want. Okay. The next one, so number one, so the 5 simple tips that'll skyrocket your blog results this 2019. Number one was focus Number 2 was evaluate your email strategy. Number 3 is going to be to shift to promotion over creation. Okay, so here's the thing. You may remember this classic movie, right? The Field of Dreams. And the big thing in here too is, Kevin Costner's character and stuff. Here's the voice of, hey, if you build it, they will come, right? And the day, that's coming is this, legendary, magical, historical baseball team and stuff. These players, these great players throughout history and everything, coming to play on the baseball field that he builds in the middle of this cornfield, right? Great for cinema, horrible for blog strategy, right? But yet I see a lot of people kind of go down this path of, okay, well, if I build it, they're going to come, right? I published a blog post. How come people aren't visiting my blog? Okay, and that right there is really kind of a rough strategy, because it's really going to lead to disappointment in the results, right? People are not going to come to your blog just because you wrote a blog post. Okay, I'm sorry. I wish I had better news, but it's just simply not going to happen. Okay, so ultimately, you want to kind of get away from this mentality of as a blogger, as a writer, my biggest focus is really just to write, right? It's just to create the content, and then it's going to show up number 1 on search engines everywhere, and people on social media are just going to make it go viral, and it's just going to be everywhere, and everybody's going to read it. Okay, that's just not the reality for 99.999% of the content that's written on the internet. That is just not the reality. Okay, so what really becomes important too is yes, I still want you to continue to write great content, right? Focus on your content. Like, it's just, I'm pouring everything into this. This is going to be the best post, right? And if you're doing it with that number 1 step, that focus, right? The focus that your readers want to hear from you on, and the things that you're really the most passionate about and stuff, right? And if you're really driving content that way and writing it well, okay, definitely still a big thing. Then you need to start thinking about promotion. Okay, and this is one of the things that I feel like I see a lot of bloggers lack. Right? Is I've had, for example, I've had some bloggers come to me and say, oh, I'm disappointed because the auto post from when I publish a new blog post to send it to my Facebook page has stopped working, or doesn't, publishing to my personal profile on Facebook, it stopped working, or whatever, right? And they're saying, how are people going to see my content? Well, auto publishing something from your blog when you publish the new blog post at 6 a.m. in the morning to automatically go up on a Facebook when a lot of people aren't even on Facebook yet and stuff. That's not going to be the biggest driver for success. Okay, so when I talk about shifting from focusing on your content creation to focusing on promotion, is then thinking about becoming a promoter of your content. Okay, so thinking much more strategically about, how do I share content at the right times? When are my people most likely to be online? If you have a Facebook page, for your brand or for your blog or as a writer or anything like that too, you can go to, I'll talk more about this in a second. You can go to look at, the analytics for your page and stuff too, and see when most of your people are online. A lot of times they're online more in the evening, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, sometimes later. Those might be the best times to really push out and try to engage new content on Facebook, for example. Okay, rather than trying to publish your post to Facebook first thing in the morning. My personal stuff, some of the most shared and most engaged content that I've published from my blog when I share it on Facebook has been sharing to my personal profile at 10 o'clock at night on Sunday night. Right, and logic would think that that's probably not going to do so hot, right? But so you want to look at trends like that. But I think more importantly than just looking at trends of like, what time should I post to social media on Facebook or on Twitter, what days of the week, what time of day, all that stuff, is to look for opportunities to share your content very specifically. Okay. And when I talk about opportunities is if you engage in Facebook groups, right, where people are talking about like-minded content and subjects and stuff. If you get involved on other forum type websites like Reddit, for example, there's a lot of community out on Reddit that's just having conversations and people asking questions and stuff, right? So those are opportunities that if you have written content on a certain subject, to find and people asking those questions and then share your response, right? Sometimes in some of those forums, right, like on Reddit, they're not huge fans of like just, oh, you're just here just to blast your links everywhere, right? So if you see a conversation, for me, just as an example, I've been talking about adoption. If I see people having a conversation about adoption and how maybe had a question about a certain aspect of it, if I had written a blog post about that aspect, it's not really best practice or whatever to go and just say, oh, here's my link, read my blog post. But maybe share some of my insights in the post and say, by the way, I've also written a blog post about this. Here's a link to that if you want to read that full thing in detail and stuff. So those are opportunities to get out there and promote my content in places where people may not have been finding it. If they were looking for answers to that question, they went to Reddit, for example, then they're looking to other people on Reddit for information and help, right? And I can be that information and help there. And then also, by the way, share a link to, I've written more about this subject here if you would like to read further, right? So not only does that help that one person whose question I'm answering, but it helps everybody else who's part of the communities there and stuff too. And they'll see that, and if I do that well, right, upvote me and more people get to see it and all that fun stuff, right? So that's the big thing is you can do that kind of stuff just about anywhere. You can do it in Facebook groups, you can do that in hashtag conversations on Twitter, something pops up. Hell, I wrote a blog post about that a while ago. Here's a link. Think about the ways to promote, right? I even have a new course that we're developing, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes here as we wrap this up. But a new course that we're developing, and one of the things that we're looking at in that course too is shifting the mentality from being primarily content creator as a blogger, right, to using like that 80-20 rule, kind of shift it around and say, all right, I'm going to spend 20% of my time focusing on content, and I'm going to spend 80% of my time working on how do I promote it, right? And in this new course, we're going to dig into specific ways that we'll be able to do that and give you some very practical exercises and stuff. But think about that. You need to shift away from, and this is one of the big tips, shift away from being a content creator only. Still do well with creating the content, but you need to start focusing a lot more on how do I promote my content? How do I get it in front of the people who need to see it? And that's today is the bigger work of being a blogger, is promoting content, in my opinion. All right. So number 1 was focus. Number 2 was evaluate your email strategy. Number 3 was shift to promotion over creation. Number 4 for your 5 simple steps that will skyrocket your blog results in 2019 is to analyze everything. Everything. Okay. Go back to my slides here. I want to point some things out. I think it's really important as you create blog content and stuff to know how every post is performing, right? I told you too that even recently for myself, I published some blog posts that I thought were really good stuff, and they go out there and they just don't perform well, right? Very well, and then I publish one on, say, on adoption, and all of a sudden it does really, really well, I can kind of go back and forth between topics and stuff too, and I can see the trends for what's resonating most with my readers, right? So it's really important to take a look at how your posts are performing, and really understanding how every post is doing specifically. If it helps, keep a little spreadsheet or something like that too, the post title, and say, okay, hey, the first week or two after this blog post was published, this is how many page views it got, stuff like that, but I've got these analytics open too, because I want to show you a couple of things. I want to show you a couple of things here related to analyzing blog posts and stuff, right, too, because it's not always just about page views, okay? You see in this one, and this is one too where I've ran some data historically as well. This is another really great practice that I like to try to take advantage of, right, is to continue to use and optimize even old blog posts that are already doing well, right? So I ran this over the span of, I think probably even a couple of years, right? The last couple of years, my personal blog has not been super active, but you can see that, I got one blog post here too that's got 4,700 page views on it. Another one at 2,700 too, and it starts dropping down, right? Fairly quickly, down to under 1,000 stuff, right? So it's not just a matter of looking at this one and saying, okay, well that's the most popular blog post right there. It's got the most views, okay? So something's happening that's getting that blog post the most views, right? It's probably showing up on some kind of search or something like that too. And I can dig into that and find out a little bit more about why. But here's a couple other things I want to point at, because it's not, like I said, not just about page views, right? Because I think being really good and successful as a blogger is more than just getting eyes on a single post, okay? One of the other things I notice here too is two numbers that I like to look at a lot is average time on page and bounce rate, okay? So for this selection, this set of data here too, you see the average time on page here is 2 minutes and 37 seconds. And then the bounce rate is I consider that a pretty high bounce rate, right, is over 82%, okay? And bounce rate is what happens when people land on a blog page and then they leave, they exit that same page. They don't go to other pages on your website, right? So if they visited more than one page, they landed on my website, they went to another page, then that, brings my bounce rate down, okay? So you can see that this one, even though it's got the most views, it's got decent, and you might not be able to read that, but compared to the average of 237, it's got 346, 3 minutes 46 seconds. So they're spending time on average reading the blog post. But the bounce rate is pretty high. It's almost 88% here, right? It's even higher than the high average for this subset of results, right? So 88. So people are landing on that page, but they're not finding a reason to stick around and visit more of the website. Okay. So I've got another one down here. Still pretty good volume, but this one they're spending almost 6 minutes on the website. Okay. So I could take a look at that blog post and figure out, oh gosh, is it just a really long blog post? And what reasons do I have that they're spending way more time than average? And if I can kind of start to identify why people are maybe spending more time on that page than on other pages, then that's something that I might be able to start doing to other pages that I want to try to increase that time for. Another one here too is that I look at this one down here, the number 11 rating, right, too, is the bounce rate. Everything else on here is around 80s and a couple 70s and stuff too. This one is under 50% bounce rate, which is kind of ideal where you kind of want to have it, right? So people are sticking around more on that page than they are on than a lot of the other pages that are kind of in this subset of some of the most trafficked blog posts on my site right now, right? So it's the same thing, right? If I want to kind of figure out, take a look at that post and say, hey, okay, this might be why. Maybe because I'm featuring other links or something like that too on the page, then that's the kind of practice that I want to try to implement on other pages as well too. Because if I can take a look at that, figure out what I'm doing there, and then start to optimize some of these other ones with higher bounce rates so that we can bring it down because we're doing the same kind of thing, then that's the kind of optimization that you want to have, right? So So again, analyze everything, right? So you need to know how every post performs, what's different between, some of the top performers and then some of the lower performers and stuff, right? I can compare this and say, okay, what's different about this one page with a really low bounce rate compared to the one with the highest bounce rate in this list, right? And what's different between them? And if I can identify that, then that's something that I can start to apply to future blog posts, every blog post that I create from here on out, but even going back and optimizing some old blog posts, right? Because that's a big strategy as well too. Once you've created content for your website, it's content that's out there really forever until you take it down, right? So you don't want to forget that you have old content out there because it can still be bringing value. It can still be bringing people in. Posts like this, that's not getting 4,700 page views there because because I promote it really, really well on social media all the time. That's showing up in search engine results somewhere, right? And is driving traffic to the website. So your old content can do that. So it's important to make sure you continue to optimize that old content for those reasons like that. Okay. Also, when it comes to analyzing everything, we've already talked about email reports and data and stuff like that, right? And really evaluating your email strategy. But specifically in here too, to kind of show you one thing about this, when you look at the open rates for your emails, the one thing that the open rate really points to is the subject line of your email. Okay, so you can analyze how your subject lines are doing by looking at the open rates for your emails. So if you're running a daily blog feed, right, one of the things you can do is you can set up your automatic daily blog feed so that the subject line uses the blog post title, for example, right? I know default setup sometimes has like a, hey, new post from mysite.com on such and such date. Right, but you can change that so that it reads, my new blog post for today, or whatever, right? So you can play around with title formats and stuff like that. If it's a daily blog feed kind of thing, you certainly don't want it to just read today's new blog post, because then the subject line for that in every single email is going to be today's new blog post. And that's not going to encourage clicks necessarily. But what's more important than me telling you that's not going to encourage clicks is testing it and trying some different things in the data and seeing how different things impact open rates. So if you're using the blog post title, for example, that becomes the subject line of the email, right? And you see some of them have very low open rates and some have very high open rates, kind of like this chart, right? Then you can start comparing your blog post titles, right? How is this blog post title that's getting lower open rate, how is that formatted compared to this blog post title, right? Are there differences, right? So again, this is where we analyze everything. What's a low performer? What's a high performer? What are the differences between my low performer and my high performer? And then can I find a way to kind of create something that from now on, then all my blog posts are going to kind of follow this similar kind of format, right? So that hopefully then, with email, I'll get higher trends. If you're doing a newsletter, you again, test everything, right? But you probably want to shy away from, hey, new monthly newsletter for December from, mysite.com. Give it a title. Give it a title that allows you to play around and optimize that stuff. And there's some cool tools out there that help you optimize subject lines and blog post titles and stuff too. One of my favorites is at CoSchedule. I'll talk more about here in just a second, but CoSchedule.com has got some really cool tools to help you optimize. In fact, let me go to. I'll screen share some CoSchedule here with you for a second. So CoSchedule is a really, really slick tool because one of the things that it does is even lets you behind the curtain here a little bit too, right? Is it gives you an opportunity to create your social sharing calendar. Okay, so you can create campaigns You can even connect your MailChimp, right? So that your MailChimp campaigns are in here, just like the email for the reminder for this webinar going out, just before the webinar. You see, other webinars here coming up, right? And I have some tweets, associated with them. You see, there's a Facebook post, from a couple days ago, but tweets for the same campaign and stuff, right? So you can schedule out your content. Create your blog posts, which will show up in here, but then also create your social campaigns associated with those blog posts so that you schedule out over time. And I'll share a link on the webinar page for this in the results later on stuff too, about how to kind of schedule out your content stuff, right? But pretty slick little tool here. But the one big thing I wanted to show you in here too was the analytics. And this is one of the things I really love about using a tool like a CoSchedule, for example, is that it gives me opportunity to analyze a lot of even the social data, right? Here's the social engagement report. Shows my average engagement rates, and that it's gone up over the last period. How many messages we've sent, how many total engagements. Total engagements has gone, up 694%. So we're doing some good things, right? Shows me, my engagement rate on Facebook is way higher than it is on Twitter, which is way, a bit higher than it is on LinkedIn. It shows me where each of these have been at over time. Shows me the volume there, for each of the platforms. And then even shows me some of the most popular content, how many views are happening, how many likes, how many shares, comments, all that stuff, retweets, retweets and stuff, so I can see and measure and analyze, how my content is performing. And that gets to be a really, really big deal, with understanding the flow of content, right? What post are you creating that are getting the most the most reach, right? The most click-throughs and stuff like that back to your website, all that. Even if you're just using a regular Facebook page, there's going to be a tab when you manage your page. There's going to be a tab up there called Insights, and going to Insights is going to give you a remarkable amount of data. You even get some kind of demographic data about, like, the male, female, this age range, whatever, geographically where they live, stuff like that, so you can get a feel for really who your audience is and what kind of content they're sharing. Twitter has got, even if you just Google Twitter analytics, it'll get you the link to it. You sign into your Twitter account and you can look at analytics and show you what some of your best tweets were, the most engaged content, stuff like that too, that you've shared on Twitter over the course of every month, right? So looking at those things and analyzing what's working well on Twitter for me, what's working well on Facebook, what's working well, Pinterest, any of the platforms, right? What's working well for you on each of those platforms, really important to understand, because that'll continue to shape your social strategy over time, right? So when it comes to analyze everything, you need to know how every single blog post is performing, right? Take a look at the the Google Analytics or even Jetpack Stats and stuff. Will give you some information, but Google Analytics is really going to be a key tool for that. Look at that, and even old blog posts, over time and stuff, what's working well, what's not, what's the difference between them? How can I continue to optimize, even optimizing old blog posts that you've already done, look at your email stats, how's your open rate, right? Because that's gonna clue you in onto how you might be able to change or update your subject line on your emails. Look at your click rates, but that's going to show you the kind of engagement that's inside the content on your emails. And then look at that social data, whether you're looking at the platforms directly or using a great tool like CoSchedule. If you go to coschedule.com, they have plans even for individuals and bloggers. There's some, you set up the right way and stuff too. You can get it for a pretty low cost, but it's one of those tools if you're really serious about trying to grow your platform stuff. And connecting in your social platforms, your email, your blog, everything, and be able to kind of build a calendar for how you're promoting. then that's going to be a big win for you, and something I definitely highly suggest as you look into the next year. All right. So out of the 5 simple tips so far, we've got 4 of them. Number 1 was focus. Number 2 is evaluate your email strategy. Number 3 was shift to promotion, content promotion over content creation. Number 4 was analyze everything. And the last one here is to syndicate and guest blog. Okay. One more slide here to show you. Excuse me. Syndicate and guest blog, right? And what I mean by this, right? This is kind of a interesting tip, right? This is where then you start to kind of look off of your website, and there's 2 ways that you can do this, right? Syndicating content, which would be like taking content that you've already written, right, on your blog, and basically sending it out to be shared on another blog somewhere else. Okay. And there's a couple of very simple ways to do this and stuff, right? And there's some channels that provide some pretty good opportunity for you too. But the other ways is using content that you've already written on your blog to send out somewhere else, to syndicate it somewhere else, right? And the other way is to guest blog, to write original content on other websites, right? So when it comes to syndicating content, you can syndicate your content out to, one of the easiest ways to do it is out to websites like medium.com, right? Medium is a platform. It's kind of a blogging kind of platform, a writing platform. It was created by one of the co-founders of Twitter, along with a few other people and stuff too. But it's a really cool tool. But one of the best things about it is they've made it very easy to connect your blog, right, and import in content and have it set up so that, basically it's recognizing that the original place for this post was on your blog. Okay. So this chart right here, what this basically maps out is, and this is one of the reasons why syndicating content can be a really good thing, is getting found on search engines is all about authority, right? And increasing your authority. And this is a great graphic from the folks over at Search Engine Land, right? That show like the original site, maybe lower authority, right? But you share your content out, syndicate it out to another website. And the way that is set up is so that it basically points back to your website as the source with the attribution and the code and stuff like that, right? As the source, meaning a higher authority website like Medium, for example, pointing back to your website as being the source for content that's on that higher authority website. It lifts your authority, right? So from a purely search engine optimization perspective, syndicating your content to a higher authority website, like a Medium, for example, or several other websites, is a great way to build your authority in the eyes of search engines. Not to mention the idea that even on Medium, your content can be found there by readers and develop an audience basically through Medium and stuff like that too, effectively growing your overall reach with your content. Okay, so syndicated content is really kind of this kind of multi-benefit kind of approach that is going to help you from a technical standpoint with helping kind of build your authority and help you with search engines which will help all of your content get noticed more on that side, but also reaching and finding potential new audience. But even if you publish, syndicate over to a site like Medium or something, and it doesn't result in new readers over on Medium, that SEO benefit and stuff like that too is still enough reason to maybe even set that up and put that out there and try to nurture it a little bit. And then again, if you couple something like this with a little bit of the shifting from promotion, to promotion over content creation, you're talking about creating a piece of content and then the work that you do with it, say on a site like Medium to syndicate it out. is kind of part of that promotion effort, right? Is spend a little bit of time engaging on Medium and stuff like that too as well, so that maybe you can find some new readers there. When they come to your Medium page, they see your content and connect you with you there. Maybe even get over to your original main website, right? So think syndication like that too, but also think about guest blogging, right? Writing for other people's blogs. Excuse me again. One of the best ways to do that is let's see, stuck on the sharing here. One of the best ways to do that is to hit up other bloggers that you might know, right? Kind of common circles and stuff, and you get to know bloggers through whether it's other Facebook groups or just circles and stuff like that too. Maybe offer to swap posts or something like that too, so that you have an opportunity to guest blog on their site. They offer them the opportunity to guest blog on your site, that kind of thing. That works well, even from a hey, I might be this lowly blogger or something like that here, and I'm just working with another lowly blogger or something too, and neither one of us have huge audience. That's still extends your reach, to readers that that blogger has that you might not have. Still extends your reach, and vice versa as well too, right? I think even if there are other one of the big terms is the influencer marketing and influencer bloggers and stuff like that. Right, try to get on their blogs, because they're bigger, more important, more audience and stuff, and that I'll get noticed there and stuff. I've seen stuff too where I have friends, clients, and stuff too have had the opportunity to blog, guest post on some very, very influential blogs, and they see a big spike in their traffic for a day or two, and then it goes back down to normal and stuff. So I say, don't hesitate to do that, because you can still capture some new readers through that kind of thing. But don't feel like you have to try to get on so-and-so's big time blog in order to get noticed. But if you have to, there's that SEO effect as well too. If it has a link back to your site, this is where I'm from, where you can find me as a writer, you can leverage their authority as well too to send you stuff back. One of the big keys to doing that though is to not go into it from the approach of, hey, you're a big blogger and I want to get on your site because it's really going to benefit me, right? You want to try to find ways to make sure that you add value for them, right? If they're writing along a certain storyline or something like that recently on their blog, and you have some experiences you think their audience might benefit from, maybe offer to, hey, I've got a story that you might like, that your readers might like, and that kind of thing too, if you're reaching out to them. And sometimes maybe even asking them to guest blog for you on your site, might kind of build some of that reciprocal relationship and stuff too, where might be able to turn around and get you opportunity where they might have you on their blog. I think the big key here is, it's kind of silly to say it, don't be annoying with it, right? You don't want to stress people out and be a nuisance and hey, come right here, side. Just make sure you're developing a relationship and finding ways to add value for their website, not necessarily add value. And then also think about other online publications and stuff, right? As a writer myself, when I've done some of that writing along the lines of poverty and was really deep into that and finding some flow. Again, as a faith-based blogger, I had some opportunities to write some content for bigger websites like churchleaders.com, which is part of Outreach magazine and stuff. And, those were opportunities that drove some really great results for getting more people onto my email list and everything as well too. So I have subscribers to my blog content that came from opportunities to reach out like that. Sometimes those are going to be a little bit more difficult to get into, but it takes practice. So look for magazines. A lot of magazines may make it easier for you to write for their website than it is for the magazine. But then that could be a stepping stone too, that if you can break in and say, hey, I'd love to write a piece for your website, could be a stepping stone to get you into the actual magazine itself and stuff, right? So look for those, especially as you find that focus, right? And let that drive everything for you throughout the year. That focus can kind of become the thread. For me as a social justice kind of poverty adoption kind of blogger and stuff, right? If I'm targeting online publications that tell those stories, right, then I have a greater opportunity of being able to bust in and share some of my stories there too. And I say too, a lot of people tend to save their best content for their own blog. I say flip that around and write your best content when you're writing for somebody else's website, whether it's another blogger or an online publication or something like that too. Save your best content for them, and really put a lot of effort. Spend 2-3 times as long as you normally would on a blog post, really crafting something special to publish on those websites, because of the potential reach that you might get. Right, you'll certainly get the benefit of doing that. And then the same thing, I think, even with some of those publishing on other people's sites, whether it's guest blogs or online publications or anything too. Again, think of that third tip, that shift to promotion over content creation. Right, spend a lot more time promoting that content out there on your own, regardless of what they do with it. Even on your own, promote that content and drive traffic to them. That'll continue to open doors for you and stuff as well. Okay, so to summarize, the 5 simple tips that'll skyrocket your blog results in 2019. Number 1 was focus, right? Keep a clear direction. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Okay. Number 2, evaluate your email strategy. Try some different things, right? Mix things up, experiment a little bit there, and measure everything and figure out what's going to work best, right? You want to try to keep your unsubscribes low. Keep people subscribing onto your list, but keep your unsubscribes low. Once they're on your list, you want to try to keep them there as best you can. And then, what's getting you the best open rates and click rates and stuff like that. Okay. Shift to promotion over creation. Think that 80-20 rule, right? You want to, a lot of people focus 80% on content creation and a little bit on promoting that content, right? Flip that around and say, okay, well, if I'm going to spend time, I want to spend 20% of my time on content creation, but 80% on promotion, right? That doesn't mean do less for content creation. What it means, keep writing spectacular, stellar content, right? But focus a lot more on how you're promoting it. That's the piece that's going to get you the traction and get you the eyeballs on your content. Number 4 was analyze everything. Data, right? Dig into your Google Analytics, understand how your posts are doing. What's different between top performers and low performers of your content, and make those changes, right? Look at your email stats, open rates to optimize your subject line, the clicks to optimize the content that's in the email. Look at the social data. What's getting the most engagement, the most likes, the most shares, the most comments, everything and stuff, right? And then continue to model some of that stuff. Look at tools, like I said, like CoSchedule.com, and that could really be a big boom, especially as you're making that shift to being a content promoter, and spending more time doing that. And the last one was syndicate and guest blog, right? Find ways to get your content out there into more areas, right? So that those help bring SEO value, search engine value, with the backlinks and everything too, to you as a source and a content creator, but also give you opportunity to potentially reach additional audience. You do those 5 things throughout this next year, 2019, and I promise you, you will see substantial growth in your blog. So with that, I just want to say thanks for tuning in, watching this. Sorry that I'm a little under the weather today, but if you have any questions or need anything, just let us know anytime. Big fist bump for you. Boom, and have a great day.